three important phases. And the first phase is preparation. And the second one is the experience itself. And the third one is the processing afterwards. It doesn't make any difference which medium we are using. These three phases will always be there.
It's absolutely clear to me that consciousness is not possibly the product of the brain. It exists or can exist independently of the body, and that it's at least an equal partner, or possibly supraordinated to the world of matter.
By contemplating the images of mythology, we get in touch with those powers within ourselves.
It's very fine. I'm going to step off the limb now.
We are animals. We are beautiful, living mammals on a garden planet. Feeling the pleasure and the joy and the ecstasy of that reality is our birthright.
It took 14 billion years on this planet for evolution to create a species capable of understanding evolution and capable of understanding nature, the atom, the gene, the brain, such that we can either co-destroy or co-evolve.
The journey is about to begin.
Noosphere, the hyperorganism consisting of the interconnected totality of all sentient beings and the higher level of consciousness possessed by it.
The planet doesn't have any problems except people. What we are experiencing, the global crisis, is really reflecting somehow the level of consciousness evolution in the species. And if we could have our heads and hearts in a different place, the planet could look very, very different.
Joseph Campbell did so much to bring to our consciousness the fact that the world's mythology, as vast as it is has a single theme running through so much of it, of the hero's journey. And he saw three phases to this hero's journey: separation, initiation, and return.
Exploration of the stranger and odder areas of the human mind. I mean, this is one of the things which has emerged, I think, in recent years. Not only is the material universe incomparably larger and stranger than we used to give it any credit for, but the mental universe is also larger and stranger than we give it credit for. That we carry about inside our skulls an extraordinary world, a visionary world, a mystical world.
In terms of the times we live in, we have opportunities for spiritual growth and development that never existed before in the world. We have the whole world's spiritual riches potentially available to us. Now, the way it's almost always been when most people never went more than 20 miles from their home village is you were lucky if there was a spiritual teacher around at all, and you were lucky if the way that teacher taught fitted your personality at all so you could actually get somewhere with it.
We have a way of sort of valuing the rational aspects of our intellect and subordinating and actually sort of eradicating these kinds of experiences like intuition or direct knowing from children.
We're living in a very interesting time. The civilization that we call Western techno-industrial civilization is simultaneously becoming global and collapsing. As far as we know, historically, that's never happened before on this planet. I mean, civilizations have collapsed before. Rome collapsed. It collapsed from inside. Why? Because it depleted the granaries, the North African granaries. You have no bread to feed the soldiers. Forget it. The military, your military won't fight. They'll get fed. They didn't think about that, you see. The empire always wants to expand, right? It's just like now. Just expand. We can do it. We've got the greatest military in the world. Well, it's not going to do you any good, you see. If you can't feed the soldiers, you can't pay for it. There's elements within the culture that want to keep things the same. That's true of the economy and politics too, see. People who have power want to keep power. People who have wealth want to keep the wealth. That's the primary motivation. Capitalism, what's called the neoliberal model, is a dysfunctional system. It's not life sustainable. It doesn't support all of life. And half the population on the planet is living at a poverty level. 1 billion people who are permanently hungry. Tens of thousands of families who live full-time on a trash dump in Manila or Mexico City. You can't by any stretch of the imagination call that a civilization. The ecosystems on the entire planet are being stressed and overstressed to the maximum of their carrying capacity. Population is increasing exponentially, so vastly increasing demand on ever decreasing resources. It's a runaway system.
The best estimates are that a quarter of mammal species will be extinct in 30 years. Half of all species of life will be extinct in 100 years. All species of the next couple of decades are going to see tremendous dislocations and turbulence.
We are an integral part of nature. In some sense, the human being is like an expression of nature, which nature sort of perceives itself. It's like a sort of extension, of nature, and deeply embedded in nature and interconnected. And this is something that we lost, awareness of this embeddedness and of this connection.
Is one in contact with the spirit world. Who is this like for us in the West? This is like Christ, Buddha, any of the awakened ones who have traversed the full spectrum of being.
Myth itself was probably formed out of the initial shamanic experience of going out into these other worlds and having these otherworld experiences and coming back. And I think one of the main things that the shaman actually does is bring those experiences down into language.
Shamanism, a worldview within which mediation between physical and spirit dimensions becomes possible through ecstatic states of consciousness.
The study, the appreciation, and to some extent the sharing of shamanic experience is an important bridge back to a consciousness, which was the dominant one many thousands of years ago.
The basic principle of shamanism, as I come to understand it, when it's stripped of the cultural particularities, is the use of entering an altered state of consciousness, an expanded state of consciousness, and for the purposes of obtaining knowledge, for healing, or seeking guidance or vision.
Several of the earliest mystery cults in the Greco-Roman world were catalyzed by contact between Greek culture and a shamanic culture to the north of Greece, in places like Thrace and Scythia. And around the 7th century BC, the argument goes, trade routes opened up between Greece and these northern regions, and the Greeks came in contact with shaman-like characters. The principal feature of shamanism is that the shaman is able to leave his or her body. It's called ecstasy, ecstasis, to stand outside the body. The shaman has something inside him or her that is detachable from the body, that can leave. And this is the source of the shaman's ability to heal, to bring esoteric knowledge back to his or her people from other realms. The Greeks, when they encountered this phenomenon, seem to have generalized it in a way that the shamans themselves haven't. And among the Orphics and the Pythagoreans especially, came to be believed that not just the shaman, but all human beings, in some sense, possessed this fundamental duality, that not only within the shaman, but within everybody, there is something that is detachable from the body, that is not made of matter, that especially is not born when the body is born and does not die when the body dies. That's something that it was given a name, and the name was psyche in Greek. Psyche is how we pronounce it now, and the word means soul. And this is the origin, as far as scholars are able to determine, of the concept of the human soul in the history of Western thought. And so there seems to be a very mysterious shamanic catalytic element in the formation of the soul concept in Western civilization. And this then gets taken up by Plato. That becomes an absolutely central part of his philosophical system and worldview that then serves as the foundation for the subsequent history of Western thought.
So just at a sensory level, a culture that is in harmony with its environment is more attuned to the subtleties of the environment in which it exists. When you go into the Amazon, just at the material level, we think of food as something that comes from the grocery store. They're able to see subtle things in the forest that from our untrained eye are invisible.
If a plant at, say, 3,000 feet elevation up the side of the volcano comes into bloom in late April, then people who are up there gathering herbs recognize, when that blossom comes into bloom, that means that particular little fish down in the tide pools down the coast will also come in, and it's a time to go catch that fish. So they've got a system of watching how the whole network of life forms are creating this calendrical signaling system. And then wherever you are, if you're tuned in enough to know that system, to have recognized it through generations and generations of observation, then you know how to steward, really, how to take what you need and take care of all of these different parts of that complex system. That's the level of attention that ideally we should be paying to nature right here.